Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and everybody's able to hear me, correct? Hopefully I wasn't just talking. Okay. Okay, well, let's get started. Hi. For those of you who don't know me, or I know that some of people are joining from the safety engineering team, thank you, Sam, for sending the invite. My name is Veronica Mendoza. I am the executive assistant for the cryptography team. I support Cam Beer and Jonathan Koss. And also, I put this title to myself as the Chief Morale Officer for the crypto team. That is just one title that I give to myself. So here is one of the presentations that I wanted to share with you about Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. It's a holiday in Mexico, and I'm very excited to share this with you. Let's go over some of the agenda items. Just a disclosure, I am not a expert on the subject matter, but I was born and raised in Mexico City. I moved to the United States when I was 15, and I grew up with these traditions and holidays, and I wanted to share how I, my family, and people in Mexico celebrate this holiday. If you Google Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos, you're going to see different variations because this is not only celebrated in Mexico, but it's also celebrated in different areas of Latin America. And even in Mexico, different regions will celebrate different ways. Some of you might have seen the movie Coco, Pixar movie Disney. If you have watched it, I think they did a really good representation of this holiday. And you're going to see some of these similarities in my presentation. A lot of what I'm going to be talking is based on the Aztec beliefs. They had these beliefs that people would go to different heavens after they die. So we'll talk about those different heavens. I'm going to talk about what is an ofrenda or an altar, and what are the icons that we place in those ofrendas and their meaning. Then I'll take you to a little mini tour of the ofrenda that I have here in my household that I do every year. And I'll show you that as well. And then we'll go through some questions and answers. Does that sound like a plan so far? Everything's ordered? Okay. So when is it and what is it? Currently, the Day of the Dead is observed in Mexico November 1st and November 2nd. It is also considered to be the day of All Saints Day, and All Souls Day. In Mexico, we see November 1st as dedicated for the souls of the children. And November 2nd is dedicated to the souls of the adults. And what is it? This is the idea that we honor the people who are no longer with us. It is believed that during these days, the spirits of our ancestors, family members, and friends that are no longer with us take this journey from their afterlife and come visit us at our home to enjoy the offerings that we have prepared for them in the altar or ofrenda. It is also a time for us here on earth to remember our family members, their legacy, and to celebrate their life. So you'll see during these 2 days, people gather together in their family homes. Like, for example, when I was in Mexico, we would all go to grandma's house, and then we'll gather together around the ofrenda, and then we'll eat bread and hot chocolate, and we'll tell stories about the people that are no longer with us. So, like, we would hear stories about my great grandpa and my great grandma and my great granduncle and the crazy things they would do when they were younger. So that's the idea of this holiday. Some of the historical background and where does all this come from? Traditions come from centuries ago, about 3,000 years ago. This is before the Spanish conquistadors came to Latin America in the 16th century. Indigenous people in Mexico had their own rituals and celebrations honoring the ancestors that would last a whole entire month. This would be around August. As the dominant native culture, Aztec traditions were the most influential in shaping the current way Mexico celebrates this holiday. The Aztecs believed that in the time of death, their loved ones would go to another place that and it was different for each person depending on how they die. Each person would go to different heavens, which I'll talk more in detail later on. When the Spanish came to Mexico, Catholicism became a thing that they introduced to the Aztec people and Mexico in general. They blended the Aztec beliefs and their traditions and turned the holiday into what is now known as All Saints Day and All Souls Day, making it November 1st and November 2nd the official holidays, which those days align with dates in the Catholic Church that were reserved to pray for the deceased. Okay, so remember I talked about the different heavens. We'll talk about these different heavens and where do the souls of our deceased ones would go. So the first one, and probably the most honorable place to go after life, would be the Omeyocan. This would be Huitzilopochtli's heaven. So there's going to be a lot of Aztec words that are going to be really hard for me to pronounce, and I'll do my best to pronounce it. Huitzilopochtli's heaven. So Huitzilopochtli was the god of sun. He was the most important god in the Aztec culture, making this heaven the most honorable place to go. The people who got there after life were people who died in combat or war, women who would die in childbirth, and all those that were sacrificed in ceremonies to honor the gods. As some of you may know, the Aztec culture involved human sacrifices to satisfy the honor of their gods in hope that the gods would give prosperity to their people. So if you were one of the people that would be sacrificed to honor these gods, this gives you kind of VIP pass for the Omeyocan. It's like, oh, you were sacrificed. Welcome to Omeyocan. So they kind of got special treatment, and it was kind of honor for them to die that way. A little intense, I think, but the next heaven is Tlalocan. Tlalocan was Tlaloc's heaven. Tlaloc was the god of rain and water. Those whose death was related to water, for example, like drowning, would be the people that would go there. Another heaven, and one that is super fun to pronounce, is called the Chichihuacualco. This heaven was the heaven where all the kids' souls would go, regardless of how they die. Chichihuacualco means the nurturing tree, and it was believed that there was this huge tree with branches and flowers that would give milk eternally to children. Now, the most common place to go would be the Mictlan. The Mictlan was Xolotl's heaven. Xolotl was a god of fire and lighting. He was depicted as a dog-headed god who also believed that who was believed to be the a soul guide for the dead. His heaven was reserved for those people who died of natural causes. So if you just are really, really old and you die, or like you just died of normal sickness. Some people ask me if I know any of the indigenous language. No, I don't. I'm sorry. Nahuatl, it's probably one that we're trying in Mexico. They're trying to keep it alive. And Nahuatl is the Aztec language, and some people still know it. It was kind of frowned upon back in the time, and people who would speak that language, it was prohibited. But now Mexico is trying to still rescue that and is trying to push for people to promote the language. So I don't speak it. I wish I could, but no, I only speak Spanish and English. Anyway, going back, this heaven was, again, for those people who died of natural causes. So if you were old or you got really sick, this was the place to go. But the problem with going to this heaven, it was not an easy a journey. In order to get there, you needed the help of a small dog who would help you cross a river to get to this heaven. And then this is where Xolo Escuincle would come. A Xolo Escuincle is a native breed of Mexico, native breed of dog in Mexico. And you see this picture over here. That is a Xolo Escuincle. It is considered a sacred dog by the Aztecs. I personally want one. My husband thinks it's so ugly. They're also hypoallergenic, just FYI. I think they're really ugly. It's kind of cute, but that is one thing that I'm trying to convince my husband. I feel like dog is Mexican. I am Mexican. Perfect, right? But that's just one thing that I need to convince my husband. Okay. So then, because this dog was a sacred a sacred dog by the Aztec, it was believed that Xolotl, this god, gave man this dog as a gift with instructions to take care of him. And in exchange, it would give man help to guide them through the dangers of the world of the dead to get to Mictlan. That makes sense? So the most common place for people to go was this place, the Mictlan, which is the Xolot's heaven. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about how people in Mexico celebrate Day of the Dead. And we're going to talk about the different icons that you'll see very popular when we see celebrations of Dia de los Muertos. So the most important thing, and probably you'll see this in every single household in Mexico, almost every single household in Mexico, it's an ofrenda. An ofrenda is a home altar, with a collection of objects placed in a ritual display. So I'll go more over later after this slide about what each thing means in the ofrenda, but pretty much the tradition of making ofrenda comes from the Aztecs as well. They would display huge big altars. Remember I talked about it would be like a big celebration for a whole month. They would display big altars which included objects that the deceased would use or like when they were alive. So they would put like their jewelry, or they really liked a specific fruit, they would put it in the altar. Nowadays, we place pictures of them. Back in the time, in the Aztec time, there were no such thing as pictures. So the family members, what they would do, they would reserve the skulls of their family members and they would put them on display for altar. Because they didn't have anything that represented them. So if you look at here on the right, or here on here on the right, you'll see a lot of sugar skulls, and now they're also made out of chocolate. So it's a representation of those skulls. This is the scene from Coco where the grandma is telling her grandkid Miguel about why we have an ofrenda and what the Day of the Dead means. So if you do watch that movie again, watch for that scene. I think it's a really interesting one. Ofrendas are still part of today's Dia de los Muertos tradition. Like I said, in every single household, almost in Mexico, we'll have one of these. I have one in my house, and I'll show it to you at the end of my presentation. The households usually would start making ofrendas for the family members a couple of days before Day of the Dead. Okay, so then talking still more in detail about the ofrenda, I'll show you the different parts and what each of these mean. So I couldn't find anything in English, but I'll translate this for you. So when making an ofrenda, these are the most essential items to place in an ofrenda. The first one we'll go over is flor de cempasúchil, which is the marigold flowers that you'll see in every altar. So you'll need a lot of flowers. So flor de cempasúchil. We also the color is representative of the sun, and its scent is supposed to attract the souls to the altar. So that's why they're there. That is what they mean. We put a glass of water. This is to calm the thirst of the dead after the long journey that they have to take from the afterlife to get to the altar. And also we leave water in there so that they drink water before they go back. Salt is used. The color means the happiness, and also is to purify the soul. The soul. Bebidas is the drink. So the favorite drink of choice of our family members or ancestors. So, for example, my grandpa used to be a big mezcal drinker, and my grandma would be a big tequila drinker. So I put a bottle of mezcal and a bottle of tequila for both of them. So you would put that in there. Apetate, here in the bottom, is pretty much a mat. It's made out of hay or straw. And this is a symbol just for the family members to rest after the long journey. Copal is pretty much incense. This is to scare the bad juju or the bad spirits. A lot of people, my family personally does not put incense because it's very strong in smell, but some people still put it in. Papel picado is that fun, colorful folklore paper that we'll see even like in restaurants. We put it in festivity. We use it in Mexican festivities, but back in the time, the images cut in the paper were when Catholicism was imposed into the Mexican people. They still kind of wanted to represent their religion or their god, so they would display the images of their god in this papel picado or the paper. Now it's you put any kind of image in there, people dancing, flowers, things like that. We also put comida is food, so the favorite dish of your family members that they liked when they were alive. Calavera de azúcar, so the skulls. If you see here, some of them would have also their name engraved, like a little piece of paper with their name on it. It's also represent each deceased one. Pan de muerto is this very delicious pastry. It's a bread, and I put a picture here on the right. It's a bread that you would only eat during this holiday. You don't eat it anywhere else or any other day. You eat it during Day of the Dead, and usually it's when. Remember, I told you this is a day when people come and gather together, like at grandma's house. Well, people pass pieces of bread around, and then you have your hot chocolate, and then you put it in, dip it in there, and then you eat it. This is like the perfect way to eat this bread. If you notice the way that it is decorated, these kind of pieces on top represent bones. So that's why it's called Day of the Bread of the Dead or Pan de Muerto. And of course, we put the pictures to remember each family member that is no longer with us and to honor them in the altar. Okay. Now, another way that people celebrate Day of the Dead is this is mostly common in areas outside of Mexico City. Mostly, their family members sometimes would go in person and spend at least one of the nights at the cemetery visiting their family members. So in this picture, we can see it looks like the parents of either one of these ladies passed away, and they're visiting the tomb. And so they would go and put the picture and bring a lot of flowers, decorate it, and put candles. And some people even like bring music to them. So they bring food and candles and flowers. And you'll see often in the cemetery mariachi bands, or trios with guitars and instruments, walking around saying like, "Hey, do you want to serenade your dad or your grandma and stuff?" And again, you'll see this, and you see a lot of people celebrating life. It's not a sad time. It's not people are not crying or anything. You'll see people laughing and drinking and singing. So it's a very neat experience to witness. If you do have the chance, hopefully after the pandemic, and you try to visit Mexico around these days, just check it out. It's a very neat experience to witness. Flor de Cempasúchil. So remember we talked about the flowers, and you'll see them, I think here in this slide, you can see how many flowers are used to create an altar. So Flor de Cempasúchil, this flower is again super important during Dia de los Muertos. It is one of the most essential icons. It's a seasonal flower that grows in Mexico. It's native to Mexico, and it grows during the month of October. The name Cempasúchil is from Nahuatl, that means flower of 20 petals. It is used to decorate the ofrenda, to make an arch. So again, going back to this, you'll see an arch. You'll see an arch. It is important to have an arch on our ofrenda, because this is believed to make the bridge that connects our world with the world of the dead. So it's kind of, it makes it united. Yeah, like makes them, it's like a bridge pretty much, that joins our world with the world of the dead ones. The petals are also used for decoration to form a path from the house entrance to the ofrenda. So in this picture, you'll see they use the petals to make, the path. And this is where the path of our family members would take to get to our ofrenda. So it's very symbolic. Lastly, one of the most popular icons, especially, I feel like it has become more popular as years go by, is La Catrina. So La Catrina is that tall female skeleton wearing a fancy hat with feathers. La Catrina comes from the word Catrin. In Spanish means like a gentleman like that also dresses super fancy. So Catrina, so female that dresses very fancy. So skulls, again, have always been an icon for ofrendas and Day of the Dead. The Catrina came to life in the 1900s by a Mexican artist named Jose Guadalupe Posada. He used to be a cartoonist, and he would make like poems and like funny poems, and make fun of Mexican politicians. And his poems would be published in the newspaper. So you see here on the right, that was one of the example of those publishings. He would sketch skeletons in a satirical way to remind people that no matter how poor you are, how rich you are, what color of your skin is, what social status you belong to, we're all going to have the same fate. The message here is that one day we're all going to be skeletons and we're going to end up dead. So it doesn't matter, where you come from and what social status you belong to. So again, the Catrina has become a significant icon for Day of the Dead in Mexico. It also, the Catrina has become motive of creation of handcrafts made out of clay or paper, especially in schools. So I remember in elementary school, probably every single grade from first grade to like sixth grade, getting closer to Day of the Dead, the teacher would say, okay, so now for homework, you're gonna make your own Catrina and you're gonna present it the next day. So you would go with your parents, and buy a bunch of paper or get newspaper or use whatever you have, aluminum, cardboard, whatever, to make your Catrinas. So like you see here, there's a pictures of some Catrinas, and these are mostly, I think they're made out of paper. And you can customize it to your own, like I remember I made one of a drunk Catrina, that was one fun project to have. So you'll see that in schools in Mexico. Also, the Catrina has become inspiration of the makeup for people during those days of Day of the Dead. In Mexico, there's this huge parade in Mexico City where the participants of the parade all have the same makeup, and even the audience come and have that makeup. This is actually a picture of me a couple years ago when I used to live in San Diego with my family gathering together at my parents' house, and my cousins and my aunts and my mom would all have makeup of La Catrina. So, okay. So with that, now this is kind of a general spiel about Day of the Dead. My recommendation to you is, if you're still interested in learning a little bit more about this holiday in a fun way, or just to watch a family-friendly movie, I recommend you to watch Coco. And now, if you already seen it, watch it again. And now that you know a little bit more about this holiday, what each icon means, and the traditions around it, you can appreciate the movie on a deeper level. And I want to bring your attention here at the picture of the movie Coco. You'll see some of the things that we talked about, like the Sholo Squinkle, the dog. And if you watch in detail that movie, the dog is kind of pushing Miguel, the main character, to do the right thing. So again, this idea of the dog being a guide for the souls, you know. And we see the bridge of the Flor de Cempasúchil. Again, you'll see that in the movie as well. Okay, so now, if you bear with me, I'm gonna disconnect my computer from my dog, and I'm gonna take you to my ofrenda, and I'll talk a little bit about that over there. Let's see if I can open this. Someone wants to tell me if you're able to see me still.
We can.
Yeah.
We can.
Okay, good. So hopefully I don't move this. So this is my ofrenda at home. So again, we have the petate right here. This is to rest the rest of the souls. Papel picado, which we talked about. The Arch of Cempasúchil. I could not find Flor de Cempasúchil in Seattle anywhere. So I had to make my own out of paper. And here we have, I also could not find the sugar skulls, so I had to make my own. I had some old ice cube molds out of silicon made out like that with the shape of a skull, so I had to make my own skulls, as you can see here. We have pan de muerto. I also put some candy. I haven't put any food yet because my cats would eat it. Candy, fruit, tequila, and mezcal. This is a picture of my grandma. I also put a picture of my dog, Toby. This is a picture of my husband's dad and his grandpa. My great grandma. Doesn't she kind of look like Coco? I think she does. My great grand uncle, and picture of my grandpa and grandma together. And also, I put a picture of Selena because I really like Selena a lot. Yes. So this is the ofrenda that I create. It's kind of small, but you know, I work with what I have here. Again, it's so hard to find Flor de Cempasúchil. But yeah, so there it is. And I'm gonna go back to the computer, and I'll take some questions or comments in a little bit. Second.
Vero, do you want the comments from chat, or do you want me to relay them to you out loud?
Yeah, that would be great if you can start while I'm like putting this back.
Awesome. A lot of people are reacting to your cat. Are there any questions for Vera?
This is Raj. It's not a question, but I want to say thank you, Vero. I had seen the movie.
Open also for questions if somebody has any.
Sir, go ahead again, Raj. I think she just audio dropped while she was reconnecting.
If you can read on the meantime while I get my computer starting, Benjamin, that would be great.
Yeah, Raj was saying thank you. Raj, go ahead. Can you hear us now?
Yep. Okay. So, Vero, thank you. I had watched the movie 2 times with my kids. I had some idea, but I did not have this much detailed information. Thank you for sharing.
Welcome.
Hey, Vero, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you, is it traditional just to include pictures of people that you personally knew, or will people often have an ofrenda with pictures that go back further generations?
You can put ofrenda from like past generations. So, for example, I have pictures of my great grandma, and I never personally met my great grandma, but I know stories of her, and we, like I said, it's a tradition to continue the stories and their legacy from generation to generation. And also, I have a picture of Selena. I never met Selena, but I thought she was a really cool artist, so I put pictures of Selena.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a couple from the chat. I don't know if you see them.
Okay.
How long did it take you to build your ofrenda? From Walter?
Well, because I had to do the flowers out of scratch and the chocolate skulls, it probably took me like altogether, if I put it in hours worth, probably about 3 hours. But usually, if you have the skulls or the flowers, it shouldn't take you more than an hour. I don't think so. If you have all your pictures and stuff, I had to ask my mom to send me pictures from my great grandma, and she sent it from her phone, from her iPad, from her Facebook, or a picture that she took from her BlackBerry of an old picture a long time ago. So, if you do have better pictures, I would recommend you to use that. I'm trying to look at the.
The other question was from Daniel Simon. Was in Coco, the idea is presented that remembering the dead keeps them alive in the afterlife. Is that part of the overall tradition?
That is, I noticed that in the movie. In our belief, they're always alive, so you don't have to keep their picture or keep remember telling their stories in in real life to think that they're still somewhere, right? I think the movie did a good job on creating the story. I think that's not what is commonly believed in Mexico or in traditions, but I think it gave like purpose to the movie, if that makes sense. So the idea of keeping the memories of your family members alive, that is something that each family does, and I think it's very personal beliefs, depending on what, like for example, my family believes, that our family members are still, with us somehow in spirit.
So Vero, I'm curious. I know a lot of other countries, especially in Mexico, will adopt American traditions. So growing up, like, was there a combination of Dia de los Muertos and trick-or-treating that was interesting?
No. Good question, actually. And I was debating whether or not I should talk about this in my presentation. So, for example, one big that trick-or-treating to me was very new when I moved to United States. I moved back like in early 2000s. But I think with the influence of social media and movies, the American culture has spread out and through different cultures. So, for example, trick-or-treating, you go here, you dress up in a funny costume, and you go and ask for candy through the neighbors. In Mexico, now we do see it more often. We do see kids asking for candy, dress up in the funny Halloween costumes, or adults will dress up in skanky things. But back the way I remember my childhood in Mexico, you don't do trick or treat. You go and get like a little pumpkin and go around the neighborhood, and you say like "me da para mi calaverita," which is like, "Can you give me for my little skull?" And people and kids would ask for money, not candy, money. So I remember growing up, I would go. You don't dress up really; you just ask with a little pumpkin for money. And then adults would do like Dia de los Muertos, like Halloween, if you don't dress, you would dress as something scary, not like Superman or something like that. I think it has become more of a popular thing to do now these days because of the influence of movies and social media.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions or comments? I recommend you to watch Coco, and I hope this was a enriched experience for you all. I want to thank you personally for taking the time to hear my presentation. And if you have any questions that you don't think of them right now, I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and attention.
All right. Thanks a bunch, Vero.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.